All this will pay off. But it doesn't mean I am going to sacrifice them for it. And that's why I'm here to remind you that there's certain patterns that we must do, that we must achieve as the leaders of our household to make sure that we're able to sustain at all levels of our life, in our health, in our relationships, and in our business. Good morning, and welcome to another episode of Mindset Mastery. I'm your host, Araujo, and I want to thank you again for choosing to spend 30 minutes with me, choosing to spend this time to recalibrate and recommit to the challenges, right, the obstacles, and the glory we will experience this week. And going into this new week, realizing that we all have responsibilities to win. We all have responsibilities to overcome, to accomplish, right? To deliver is within all of us. And it is a constant reminder to ourselves that we must live that way, that there is no other way, there is no other option but to win, realizing that there's going to be these obstacles, realizing there's going to be these challenges. But if you go into this knowing that you have the skill sets, you have the mindset to overcome, it gives you that advantage. It gives you that confidence and that trust in yourself that you will overcome. Now, I wanted to talk about a subject in particular and continue to check in. Thank you for coming on board. And I do want to talk about a recent experience and a recent epiphany that I had. And I've been getting a lot of them. You know, anytime I put myself out there in a place of suffering, right, in a place of challenges, of pain, it seems like I am opening myself to even more insight, right? And it just drives me to be able to learn more and dissect it even more through my own experiences. And as you're watching this or as you're hearing this, if there's anything that resonates with you, I need you to jot that down. And I need you to convey and communicate this message to someone else. Because this is what's going to give you the overall drive and sense of purpose, is being able to share your own experiences of suffering, your own experiences of overcoming those pains. And I listen anytime I get on an Audible book, anytime I'm on a podcast, anytime I'm reading a book, I'm looking for it to trigger a past memory that has given me the drive to be where I'm at right now. This weekend, I was very, I feel very fortunate. I sit back sometimes and Carla and I will look back and we're like, wow, is this really the life we've created, right? Where we're impacting individuals and still living this life on fire, which was very far away from where things used to be, right? Where it was always just despair and dysfunction. And, we drove around and we had our daughters with us. We had our dogs and we decided to drive by a few properties that we own. And I've been in a very, I just felt a lot of gratitude for being able to make decisions when I did, to be able to set myself and my family on a platform of success, a platform that I had to learn from scratch. Like, this was not taught to me from my parents. This was not taught to me from anyone else but my own errors. What was taught to me was a new perspective of suffering, right? And the rewards that come along from that, if we choose to look at it from that perspective. And I start looking and I'm like, wow, this is, I can't believe it's something that I've created. And this gratitude moment comes from understanding that life in general and what you're trying to create for your business may not be fully visible to you right now. And we may be caught up on what it costs you to run your business, right? The inconvenience, the anguish, the stress, the duress, that we don't see that if we continue to go upon that path, we build the capacity to be able to overcome and live the life we truly want. It's when we limit ourselves, when we subside to the suffering and try to stop away that the inevitable win, because it comes at the back and the cost of more suffering. Case in point, I remember just running for my first triathlon. And the entire time, I'm telling you, I'm like hurting. Like I wasn't built to run triathlons. That was the story in my mind, right? I'm too big. I just, this is not my game. I'm a weightlifter, right? I'm about power. I'm not about agility. I'm not about, being able to run and swim and cycle all these miles. And the entire time I was caught up on the pains. I was caught up in the suffering to a point where it was beating me down, and all I could think about was the finish line. All I could think about was getting to that finish line. And one thing ensued, and that is the subject of today's Mindset Mastery. I saw the light at the end of the tunnel, but what I wasn't prepared for was the unhappiness. Many times as we're building a business, we get used to all this suffering. We get used to all these obstacles that come along with trying to get a deal in escrow, trying to close a transaction. That we start making up a story that once this deal closes, then everything in my life will be just fine. Things are going to change. My marriage is going to change. I am going to be a healthier person. So we look at that light at the end of the tunnel and we say, that is the solution. Once I get there, I will be happy. I will be fulfilled. Well, it turns out many times that when we see that light of the tunnel, we're not prepared for the unhappiness that comes along with it sometimes. I know that as soon as I saw that finish line, as soon as it came within my vision, it wasn't a sense of happiness. And this is what we have to dominate. And this is what we have to master as we start progressing our lives. That the whole time I was caught up on how I was going to feel when I see that finish line. That I did the complete opposite when I did. My body started shutting down. I started thinking, I can't believe I still have to go way over there. When I couldn't see it, I was stuck in my own head and making up the story of how wonderful it was going to be when I crossed that finish line. But at the moment I saw it, my body started aching. My mind started shutting down. I wasn't prepared for the unhappiness and the challenges that come along with it. Now, I'm telling this story because I see this a lot in our business, right? Our psychological mindset, our psyche in general. We start allowing ourselves to weaken when we see that light. I could have had a conviction. Now, through many reps, my mindset has changed now. Whenever I see challenges, I get excited. Whenever I see the finish line, I get excited. But to the untrained, right, or inexperienced person, that finish line is another source of unhappiness because of how much you have left. I took on this challenge of 100 miles. We only have 12 miles left. I know what I would have done had I been in this place 2 years ago or 3 years ago. I would have probably sat in the place to say, I can't believe I still have that many miles left. And many people even quit up to that point when they have 20 miles left, 30 miles left. Because the suffering has succumbed them. They have succumbed to the suffering. A buildup of a business comes on the back of all that suffering. And oftentimes what we think is going to be the big savior in our lives ends up being more torment. I'm going to bring you this all together in just a second, okay? Because I know I got a lot of multiple stories going on at once. But what I'm saying here is this. We cannot sacrifice and we cannot just focus on the finish line. Because we will be rudely awoken when we do cross that finish line and realize that the happiness that we painted in our minds is not necessarily there. That maybe the journey of life is not the finish line. but it is the experience that we're actually going through, the actual suffering, and the appreciation of putting yourself in that place. Many business owners fail to see that as they're succumbing to the stress and duress of trying to build something great for themselves. And all they can focus on is that one commission check or those few commission checks that are coming down or those pay dates. And when it comes, they go farther, not closer to happiness, but farther away. Because they think this is the way it's always going to be. There's going to be a lot of suffering, a lot of obstacles every time they need to get paid. And that may be true for some. But appreciating the journey, not the finish line, is what will keep you going over and over and over again. The sense of entitlement that once this comes into fruition is what destroys a lot of motivation. The finish line is not the fruit. It is almost like a checkpoint. It is supposed to be a reinforcement. And I see this many times with agents that have worked and have suffered, and they get their paychecks, and they see it as a finish line. And all the things that they've avoided during that time away from the family, not invested in themselves, eating unhealthy, taking on this duress without finding healthy ways to be able to release that, sabotage their growth, because once they get those paychecks, what do? They feel accomplished. So they do things that are not rational for a growing business. They start spending money where it's not rational for a growing business. They feel the guilt of not spending time at home, so they take these trips that are not rational for a growing business. They start inviting family members. Don't worry about it. I got it. I'll pay the entire bill. Things that are irrational for a growing business. It is not a celebratory time. It is a time to appreciate the suffering, because what ends up happening at that point is that they completely sabotage their growth. And it weighs heavy because the following month, they're right back where they were before with no lessons learned. Because the money that they should have probably saved or spent in better ways is now gone. The reason I have the properties that I do was because I was willing to sacrifice this short-term success, right? Enjoyment, and have those conversations with my family on a consistent basis that all this will pay off. But it doesn't mean I am going to sacrifice them for it. And that's why I'm here to remind you that there's certain patterns that we must do, that we must achieve as the leaders of our household to make sure that we're able to sustain at all levels of our life, in our health, in our relationships, and in our business. Because if you prioritize your business over the others, you will never have that sense of accomplishment fully. So when I said sacrifice, I said we're not taking these trips right now. We're going to have to reinvest. I know all these things that you want, we're going to have to reinvest that in the business right now. But it doesn't mean I am not going to be present. Building this brokerage has been one of the biggest challenges for us. But I chose not to celebrate too early, and I chose to embrace the suffering, that there is no finish line. In fact, as you see the finish line, you have to set a new threshold for yourself. Otherwise, you will stop. Otherwise, you will collapse like I did. If that was just a checkpoint, There's no way my body would have froze up the way it did, because I allowed myself to get to that point. Because I was under this false pretense that that is the finish line. Your checks are not the finish line. They're checkpoints. They're meant to reinforce you. Yet the pattern of many agents is they get the checks, and all of a sudden it is subsequently followed by no checks for months. Because in their minds, that was the finish line. That was where happiness was going to come from. It is a checkpoint for all of us. I recently did, I would say last year, yes, I started getting some reminders. I did another triathlon with some guys here at the office. And I understood this pattern. That I wasn't working towards the finish line. I was going to work through the finish line. And I made sure that when I saw the finish line, it inspired me. Because that was the checkpoint. And I was going to appreciate what I've been through already. And when I saw that finish line, I made sure I ran through it. Just like I run my business now. Anytime there's a great accomplishment in my business, in a software we've implemented, in a process we've implemented, in a new sales number we've overcome, I make sure to run through it. I don't sit there to celebrate and say, this is it. The last triathlon, as my family was standing there, cheering me on, I went through it hard. And I told myself, I will not cramp. I will not collapse. I will be happy. I will appreciate. I will be present. And after beating my times in the swim, in the run, I felt stronger than I ever felt in my life. Not beaten, not worn, because I understand the game of the finish line. That it is ultimately just a checkpoint. And if you can have this thought process as you're just building your business, as you can have this thought process of realizing that these thresholds is a new level for you. That finish line is not a finish line, but an entry point to the next. You will wake up the next morning and say, I got more to do. I have to continue my marketing. I have to continue my sales, my connecting, my follow-up. Because I enjoyed this checkpoint. And I realized these checkpoints are going to build me to the next level in life. I spent too much time in my late 20s celebrating everything. Finish line, finish line, finish line. That, in fact, all I was doing is sabotaging growth. I limited my growth. Because every time you stop, you tell yourself, this is as far as you're going to go. This is as much money you can have in the bank. You start making up stories. You've been spending too much time from home. You're not paying attention to your health. So you stop everything else in business to go take care of those problems, only to realize now you have a financial mess you have to deal with again. That's why we do it all here, every day. The focus is on all things, every day. The sense of entitlement is what we got to get rid of. The sense is that you deserve it now. We have to get rid of that. And I'm talking to those that, that have been stuck. I know what it feels like to be stuck. To know what kind of money you're going to make by the end of the year, because your numbers have been in that place for a long time. And I want you to consider is that every time you just limit yourself because you look at the checkpoint as a finish line. And when you look at it as a finish line, we have this psychological understanding of that means quit, that means stop. I need you to push through those thresholds. That is not meant for you to stop, but to build up the overall skill sets to be able to now to produce at that level, the mindsets to be able to produce at that level all the time. So if you're seeing those numbers stuck over and over and over again, there's too much celebration going on. There's too many finish lines that you're misinterpreting. You just have to change. There's no way I could have changed in this business if I didn't see those as checkpoints. That's where we need to start today. I got, and it's about the change in perspective, right? I got this text today, and I'm not going to disclose who it is, but I think there's so much insight. Because again, when we're in this dark place, when we're trying to work for a living, we say things like, man, I would give anything to be able to have these deals in escrow. Like, understand that sometimes we're all in a place of we don't know when our next deal's coming from. And it seems dark and it seems bleak. But then there's another side to that. There's a flip side. And I got another call about being too busy and about feeling the guilt about not being home. And my question is, where would you rather be, right? Being too busy or not enough? Because when you're too busy, I feel like you could build a skill set, a framework to be able to take that down, to be able to control the situation. It takes more skill sets to be too busy and then find a solution than it does not being busy at all and finding a solution. I think most people are capable of the first of that situation, of not being busy at all and then finally getting their one deal. I think most people can handle that. What's harder is being really busy and try to sustain that, trying to figure out a process and a way to be able to cure that. And oftentimes is appreciating that you're in that place as opposed to dreading it, that you're too busy, you can't spend time at home. I got a call this week. And it was like, I have too many buyers. I got too many prequels. I'm not spending time at home. I work from 8 in the morning to 8 o'clock at night. It's a long day. See, these stories like that will stop us from hitting a new threshold, because if this person doesn't dive into that and realize that is the new norm for him, to be busy this way, then what he's going to essentially do is sabotage his growth by not going after more individuals to buy or sell, because he's already hit his capacity. So we start dreading the process, which in turn debilitates further growth. The question now is, I expect to be this busy all the time. How can I find people to help me? How can I find a process to streamline this? And as opposed to feeling the guilt about not being home, having that conversation and appreciating, oh my God, I'm in this place now. We self-sabotage all the time. All the time. And many of you have experienced that, where you have a bunch of deals and then you have no deals, because you don't expect yourself to operate at that level moving forward. It's a fluke. It's too hard. It puts too much stress on the family. Let's start looking for solutions in this place. There's always a way. I got another text. I caught myself complaining that I had to show homes at 8 o'clock in the morning on Mother's Day. Complaining that I didn't get sleep for one day. I didn't get to sleep in for one day. Complaining that my clients are inconsiderate, that it was my day. I've been in that place so many times, right? How can my clients request this from me? Don't they know it's my birthday? And I know a story like this, very true. But then this person said, then I came home, wrote up an offer, sat back and reflected on how grateful I should be that they chose me. They could have chosen anyone to represent them, but they trusted me. Never once did I think about how they took time out of their Mother's Day to look at houses. Never once did I consider that maybe that mother wanted to sleep in. Crazy how a small shift in mindset can change things. I was selfish. I was ungrateful. I was being inconsiderate. Like, those are powerful words there. The saying gratitude can change your attitude has never been so clear. See, what happened here is a change of perspective, right? But more than that is realizing that any day can be Mother's Day if you're doing the right things. If you really start looking for appreciation, any day can be your birthday. Any day can be these milestones that we perceive should be an entitlement for us to take a step back. But in fact, a great gift was given to her. The gift that she's showing her kids of what it takes to be a strong, powerful, successful woman. And in fact, all I wrote was, what a great gift for Mother's Day. Why? Because she got too accepted. And these are examples that I see through and through. And what happens here, if she's able to lean into this, she will see a whole new level of success in her business. Because the Mother's Day wasn't just, it was just like this notion of a finish line, right? I'm not trying to diminish anything. Please don't misinterpret anything that I'm saying here next. But we have to understand that there's greater consequences of us not taking down these opportunities, not showing up powerfully every day. Of course, we want people to understand our pains. Of course, we want people to give us a leniency on the obstacles we're facing. But at the end of the day, if you can't deliver, someone else will. And when we take the way of like what others should be feeling and we just appreciate our own journey, great things happen. Like 2 deals. Great things happen. Like 5 buyers and 3 listings. You know who I'm talking about. Because there is no more notion of finish line, but appreciation and feeling grateful along the way. Crazy how a small shift of mindset can change things. I was selfish. I was ungrateful. I was being inconsiderate. You see, when we cross that finish line and we stop down our marketing, we are being selfish. You are being selfish every time you stop after a success. Because there's a sense of entitlement, that you deserve the time off, that you deserve certain things. It was just a checkpoint. The gift was along the way the entire time. And that's the way we're going to approach this week. Every obstacle is a gift. Every challenge is a gift. When you get that checkpoint. All right, what are you guys hearing in this conversation? I want to thank you guys for sharing that with me. And I tell these stories because, man, these are just huge lessons, and they're your lessons. And it fuels me, honestly, because it's crazy. And this is a side note here. Like, I've been doing these mindset masteries for a long time. And sometimes it's difficult. You know, when weeks don't go as well as I planned, it's difficult to come in here as motivated and as inspired, right? Because there's a lot of ears, there's a lot of eyes that depend on this, insights. And there's a burden that sometimes comes on this. And sometimes lack of appreciation, like, damn it, I have to do this again. But it's things like this, the growth that you're seeing within your own paths, that really inspires me and fuels me to get on here day in and day out. And it reminds me, and again, my interpretation. Carla almost has like this intuitive manner. And I feel like a lot of women are like that. I felt that about my mom. I felt that about just so many women that have impacted my life in such a massive way. And I was like sleeping this morning. It was a little bit tough to get up. I don't know why, right? Maybe the burden of having to not appreciating my journey, right? And she says, Az, Moses, on Exodus 4:3, Moses was told by God that he has to deliver a message to the Egyptians. And Moses had a lot of reservations about this. He felt he was sluggish. He didn't communicate well. He felt he wasn't the right person. In fact, he was even saying, hey, why don't you ask this other person that speaks more eloquently than I do? And God kept on reassuring him and reinforcing him that he is the right person to deliver this message. This is the only person that can deliver the message. And just hearing that story, it gets me thinking of how important it is for you to share your story. I think we all have this voice that speaks within us. And some of us may see it as God speaking to us. Or it's simply just that intuition, right? The universe breathing in our ears, whatever it is that you believe. I think we all have the power to possess, to convey a message that can change others. And oftentimes, what I see is from people that get this vision of going out there and expressing themselves, but then they get shut down by their own thoughts. They get shut down by what others may say. I'm going to invite you to lean into that message, because that's going to fuel you, just like it's fueled many people already, of expressing themselves, about sharing their accomplishments, sharing their stories. Because I think we're all built to be able to influence others. And at the end of the day, that's what's going to continue to inspire you day in and day out, knowing that you've inspired others, that you've motivated others through your own actions and through your own stories. But again, I want to thank you for joining me, and I have some comments that I want to read here. If you can scroll up, please. We'll scroll down. All right. Let's go ahead from the start. Good morning, Claudia. Good morning, Cindy, Caroline, Adriana, Mario. Good morning, Nick. Thank you for joining me, guys. I mean, I know you can spend it in so many other ways, but I'm glad you're here with me. Celia, Kimberly, Dora Lee, Jasmine. Good morning, Chris. Good morning, Gabe. Good morning, Omar, Audra, Jermaine, Isabel. Good morning, David, Isela, Lonnie. Good morning, Jesse. Only 12 more to go, wondering what the next target will be. And that's the key there, Jesse, right? It's knowing that that's not the finish line. We have 12 more miles in this 100-mile challenge, and we're already talking what's next. Not like, I just want to take it easy. Not, hey, this was great. Now I can go back to my old bad habits or patterns. It's like we're going to the next. That's fulfillment in life. Michelle, good morning. Dora Lee, there is no finish line in real estate. None, never. There are not finish lines in real estate. Dora Lee, there are no finish lines in real estate, only checkpoints. I love it. Sergio, the commission check is just a result of the work placed weeks prior. Then the work starts from building a relationship to gain more business from these people. Keep stepping up. Keep setting a new standard. Got it. Yes, and that's exactly what it is, right? These are stepping stones to a new threshold. And me going around at the different properties, it was a stepping stone and a new threshold. And I had to learn all this. Not from, there's families out there, and I hope to position my family in that place that have generations of showing their next of kin how to operate life functionally, how to live in wealth, how to prosper exponentially. Like there's families that have generations of that. I don't come from that. I don't come from that. And that's okay. But now I've set it as my own personal responsibility to teach these good habits to the next generation. As I teach my daughters and she levels up, they level up their way of thinking and their way of expectations and what their standards of life is. I hope this will be a shift for many generations ahead. It's unfortunate I had to unravel a lot of dysfunctional and generational habits. Like for me, the journey has been long already, but I'm preparing for the next. And maybe that's the purpose here, right? Lonnie, there are no finish line, only checkpoints in life. Business, health, that is gold. Dominique, needed to hear this. Thank you. Dominique, you got those deals you've been wanting to, right? You've been wanting. And it's not always the key to the happiness. It is a checkpoint. You got more within you. You're going to continue to build. And I love it, dude. Kimberly, new perspective, running through the finish line to the next checkpoint instead of stopping and restarting when it's convenient for me. Thank you for this message, AZ. Abel, pump for the week. It's starting off strong. Gabe, great message. Don't keep hitting the restart button just because you get that paycheck. Keep your head in the game and don't let up. And that is a very, very common story, right? The restart button, because there is so much emphasis on that finish line. Let's take that away. This is a new way for all of us to operate. Continuing to grow, continuing to prosper, to have money in the bank, not to worry about the bills, not to worry about our next deal because we're doing the right things. It's always going to come. Expect that. Live it. Again, thank you for joining me today. Cindy, I got one last one here. Exactly what I needed to hear today. Thank you. I'm leveling up. My children are 2. Michaela went back to work today, and her banner will be on display at Dylan's West Valley Rodeo. That's awesome. An entrepreneur at age 19. Amazing. Guess where she saw that from, Mom? The impact. Guys, have a great week, and thank you for joining me, and I will talk to you soon. Bye now.